Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions on the thing. We are now in phase 2 of our Summer of Star Wars. We wrapped up the original trilogy last week, and now we are diving into the prequels here with The Phantom Menace. So joining me for that, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron? Thank you, Boss Nass. And Frank Bazzani. How you doing, Frank?
Hanging in there still after the Phantom Menace. We made it through.
Yeah, it's fair. Logan Wilkinson, unable to join us tonight. He had some car troubles, so he was not going to be able to make it for the recording. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is clearly Logan's favorite of the movies. He very much, anybody that knows Logan knows that he is a fan of Star Wars and he is a fan of politics. So, of course, this movie is going to play into his interests there. And as we were talking about right before we started recording, Logan absolutely loves midichlorians, and that everything in the Force has been explained away by midichlorians in this movie. So go ahead, if you are a fan of The Phantom Menace, tweet at Lefty Logie and let him know that you are a kindred spirit. If you hate The Phantom Menace, tweet at Lefty Logie and say, "What are you thinking, man? How could you like this movie?"
Yeah, he sent us a message before we started saying, "Hey guys, make sure you let my opinion be known that this needs to go above Return of the Jedi."
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're like, "Well, that's a hot take, man. That's a hot take. We don't know about that. Like, we'll have to talk about it." And he goes, "Guys, I'm telling you right now, if Phantom Menace is not number one, we're gonna have a problem."
Yeah, no, this
And I'm and
This
yeah,
is
so
from our DM conversation beforehand. He said his favorite part was how the Force is really just midichlorians in your blood. Now, admittedly, that was me making fun of him and saying that that was a thing that I was going to say on the show. Which he responded, "See, that's actually not funny. It's a very serious issue, Trevor." But he does actually genuinely like pod racing. So
everybody loves pod racing, man.
yeah, it did. Especially this rewatch had me go on to PlayStation Network and be like, I wonder how much that Episode One racer is right now. It's like $15, and I was like, I'll wait until it's on sale. I have the N64 version of it somewhere around here.
Is the PlayStation version any different than the N64 version?
No, I mean,
No.
it got remastered. It got
Oh, so
remastered
it's
like last
remastered.
year. Yeah,
Okay.
it got ported up to the new system. So I believe it is on Switch, PlayStation, and an Xbox. So
It
yeah.
doesn't beat the arcade version though. The arcade version is the best one.
I mean, yeah, but not everybody can afford or has the space for an arcade cabinet in their in their house.
Well, to be fair, the arcade
Especially
cabinet for a
that
pod
arcade
racer
cabinet.
is like
Yeah.
4 seats and like it's massive. It's a like go to your local Dave and Buster's and play that game, man.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a great time. I also love seeing I like any good Star Wars nerd who enjoyed the episode one. Like we all have our favorite pod race, like our favorite pod racing pods.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is the one that has the circular disc that you sit in.
Mm-hmm.
That's like very similar to the motorcycle that Grievous uses in episode 3.
Yeah.
Reusing that design, George.
There you go. I was always a fan of Ben Quadranaros's. Because it was 4 pods instead of 2, and I was like, well, it's just got to be that much more energy and more power. So of course you need that.
Even though it doesn't work
I
when he's
mean,
trying to use
I mean,
it.
yes, in this film, clearly that becomes an issue that he doesn't have the power couplings configured correctly. Yeah, we're gonna talk a ton of Star Wars Phantom
Well,
Menace.
you see, Trevor, he forgot to pick up new ones from Tashi Station.
There you go. Exactly. Yep. Um, so before we dive into our Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace talk, this show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. So if you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome, and we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, so it kind of gets the name of the show out there. We had like a weird fluke like spike in listens and stuff over in like March, April, May, and everything is like just falling off a cliff back to like our old numbers at this point. So I don't know what was going on. I don't know like if we were featured somewhere or something happened that we were getting a whole bunch of extra eyes on us, but everything is just falling back off a cliff. So if you can, rate the podcast if you're a fan, we would definitely appreciate it, and it'll help us, maybe get some extra ears on us. But yes, this show, we are talking all about Star Wars Episode 1 of The Phantom Menace. Why did we pick it? Because it is the next logical choice in our Summer of Star Wars. The history lesson here, it was originally released May 19th, 1999. Other notable releases of the time, we had Idle Hands had come out April 30th. We had The Mummy with Brendan Fraser came out May 7th.
Oh, hells yeah.
Right?
Great.
A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I pull in here, came out May 14th. 3 years later, I would be in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and like, so I watched this version of A Midsummer Night's Dream quite a bit. It was with like Kevin Kline as Bottom and Michelle Pfeiffer as Titania and a whole host of other, like Callista Flockhart's in there and stuff. So so I was like, when I saw that,
wild time.
when I saw that pop up, I was like, oh hey, A Midsummer Night's Dream, because that was the first Shakespeare show I was ever in my junior year of high school, senior year, one of the two. I don't remember which.
I did a lot of theater, man, and this is kind of, I just realized it. I've never professionally I've never on stage performed Shakespeare.
I mean, it's a different beast, especially if you're doing it with like the the old English kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no, but I just realized I've been in quite a few productions. I've done quite a few things, even just like bits on stage, but I've never done anything Shakespeare related on stage before.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Think about it. Just talk to me now.
Yeah, I think I talked about this. Logan and I did like an episode of that Nerdy Site show last year, talking about Much Ado About Nothing, and I mentioned, I think, on that show that I saw my high school do a production of it when I was in 8th grade. We did like a field trip to go see it at the high school, and that sparked me to be like, well, if they ever do Shakespeare while I'm there, I'm gonna at least audition for it. Like, that seems like so much fun. I wasn't an actor so much at the time, but I loved the arts, and I was like, I want to do a Shakespeare thing. And the routine at my high school was like, one year they'd do Shakespeare, and then the next year they'd do a musical, and then a Shakespeare, and then a musical. And the first time around that they should have done Shakespeare would have been my sophomore year, I think. But the theater was being renovated, so like they didn't do all the shows that year that they would have otherwise done. So Midsummer did not come around until my senior year, and I was like, well, I said I was going to do this, so let's do this. I was cast as the Duke of Theseus, the Duke of Athens. I don't remember who.
Nice.
I don't remember who played him in the movie. So, anyway, also other releases of the time. Back to that, we had Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, came out a couple weeks afterwards, June 11th, and then on the Disney front, Tarzan came out June 16th with all them Phil Collins bangers.
It was a great year.
Yeah,
that's a great year for film.
1999. It was a solid. I mean, that is just 3 months of the period there.
And it's just like perfect film like from Idle Hands down to Tarzan, like top to bottom. There's something there for everybody. Man, 1999 was a banger year.
Yep. Has a runtime of 2 hours and 16 minutes. And in the Star Wars timeline, as of course we've kind of discussed, this would come after Return of the Jedi, which we had not seen on in theaters. We had seen it, in the couple years prior because of like the special editions and the re-releases and stuff. But the original Return of the Jedi came out May 25th, 1983. This came out in 1999. And Attack of the Clones will continue the May tradition, as well as the 3 years between movies tradition that you had with the original trilogy, because Attack of the Clones is going to come out May 16th, 2002. The roll call, who's who of the film. As we've, I think, discussed in the past, George Lucas basically took full reins on the prequels here. So not only was he the director, but he also was the sole screenwriter on this one. Of course, we've talked about his work at length, but as a quick refresher, his previous directing credits prior to this were THX 1138, American Graffiti, and A New Hope. And that was it. He did those 3 movies and then a big old break of 20 years and then came back in here to do the prequels, starting with episode 1. He was much more busy on the writing front, where he had done kind of all of the Indiana Jones movies in the interim. What's up, Frank?
I just I really felt his influence on this one, especially when it popped up and it was like directed by George Lucas, and I was like, God damn it!
Yeah, written and directed by
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The films he had worked on most recently prior to this had been Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as well as Willow. But yeah, then he would go on to do this and the other 2 prequels in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Starring, this is the first one where we've had a big old batch of new people in a while, because we had a couple new people for each of the original trilogy, but obviously brand new trilogy means brand new cast. So up front we have Liam Neeson here taking the role of Qui-Gon Jinn. Prior to this, he'd probably been best known for Schindler's List, of course. And about a year before Phantom Menace came out, he was Jean Valjean in an adaptation of Les Miserables, non-musical adaptation, straight film version, basically adaptation of the book, not of the musical. And then he would go on to be in stuff like Love Actually, Batman Begins, Taken, Fallout 3, as well as most recently, one of his big ones was Men in Black International. Ewan McGregor takes over the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi from Alec Guinness. Prior to this, his biggest thing had been Trainspotting. And then afterwards, he would go on to be in Moulin Rouge, as well as a movie I really like, and I really liked at the time, with Scarlett Johansson, The Island.
Sean Bean. That's a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean Bean's in that too. He was Lumiere in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. He was in the TV show Fargo. And then recently he's been in Doctor Sleep and Birds of Prey. And he will be seen in the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series, reprising his role. And just fun fact for me, the very first article of the very small smattering of articles I ever wrote for IGN as a freelance news writer was about Obi-Wan talking about the idea of coming back for a 1 or 2 part movie about playing, or Ewan McGregor about coming back and playing the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wrote that up, posted up on IGN, and it was at the top of Reddit, and that was really cool. And I was like, there's my 10 minutes of fame, 15 minutes of fame. I'm done. But yes, Natalie Portman here is Queen Amidala / Padme. She kind of broke out in early childhood success and fame in The Professional, or Leon the Professional. She would also do, prior to this, Mars Attacks. Afterwards, she would go on to be in films like Garden State, V for Vendetta, Black Swan, Thor, and she will be Thor and Thor the Dark World, and she will be making her return in Thor Love and Thunder. So very cool there. Yep. Jake Lloyd playing Anakin Skywalker here. Prior to this was also the kid in Jingle All the Way.
Wow, I didn't even I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was on Arnold Schwarzenegger's kid in Jingle All the Way, that is after the Turbo Man toy. And then he pretty much, I think one of the little trivia things I saw was basically he pretty much retired from acting after this because of everything surrounding it. But he did do a film called Madison afterwards, which I believe had Jim Caviezel in it or something like that. Ahmed Best.
Was he so young, or was he older at that
No,
point?
no. It was a year or two later. I think maybe 2002. His IMDb is very sparse.
Yeah. He he filmed that right after Star Wars, and then Star Wars came out, and he retired from acting after that because of
backlash.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Speaking of backlash, Ahmed Best playing Jar Jar Binks. This was his film debut. I did pull in a little trivia thing. He basically got discovered because he was in the, I don't want to say musical, but the theatrical experience Stomp, which is one of those that I love because it's just a percussive Wonderfest, but it's lots of people banging on trash cans and stuff like that. That had an off-Broadway one for many, many years, similar to like the Blue Man Group and stuff like that. Since doing the Star Wars prequels, he has had assorted voice acting and video game roles, including most recently some Fallout 76, as well as Tilo 2, Last of Us Part 2. And then he was also in, I don't remember if this was last year or if it was 2019, but he was in a short form series called Star Wars The Jedi Temple Challenge. That was kind of like a Legends of the Hidden Temple kind of thing, but for Star Wars stuff. We have Anthony Daniels reprising his role as C-3PO, who we've talked about in the past, as well as Kenny Baker reprising the role of R2-D2, and Frank Oz reprising the role of Yoda. Ian McDermott playing Senator Palpatine this time around, reprising his role from the original film, from like making his real debut, or real like new return or something like that since Return of the Jedi. Samuel L. Jackson makes his entrance into the Star Wars universe as Mace Windu, who prior to this, of course, had done films like Pulp Fiction, and would go on to do, I think this was after the fact, but films like Shaft, as well as, of course, Nick Fury and all the MCU stuff. Andy Secombe playing Watto. Didn't really have anything of note that I wanted to pull in for him, but I did want to give Watto the shout out there. Terrence Stamp playing Chancellor Valorum, who was previously Zod in Superman and Superman 2. He was also in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Night. He was Stick in the Jennifer Garner film Elektra, right? Is that who that was? Who played Elektra in the movie? And then he was also in the TV show Smallville, playing maybe Jor-El, I think. I think he plays Jor-El in Smallville. And he will be in the upcoming Edgar Wright film Last Night in Soho.
He is a really cool actor who just has not, like, his stuff is very spotty as far as like the stuff he does.
Yeah, I did not pull in. One of his most recent things was like the Adam Sandler comedy, like Netflix comedy or something like that. Murder Mystery, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
He was like, I think the bad guy in that or something.
He plays just like, he picks odd roles, because I swear that guy could do way more. Like he's a really good actor, but
yeah,
he just like, he's weirdly, like, from what I understand, he's weirdly picky about what he does and is just kind of an odd guy.
Yeah.
So, which is sad, because I think he'd be great in a lot of stuff.
Last featured performer here that I pulled in is Ray Park, who of course plays Darth Maul. He was also in Toad in the X-Men film, in the original X-Men film, and he played Snake in the G.I. Joe movies, or Snake Eyes, sorry, in the G.I. Joe movies, up until the new one that's coming out that is Snake Eyes, which I believe is Henry Golding is playing him in that one, I think.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Very excited for that.
Other little, like, oh, hey, that person was in this movie. You have Peter Serafinowicz, who did the voice of Darth Maul in this. He is probably best known to people now as the guy from, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, who's like, what a bunch of a-holes. But he was also in, he was the Tick in the more recent Amazon Prime Tick series, as well as a handful of other things. Very funny comedic actor. I really enjoyed him in Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah, he's great in Parks and Rec. His best character role to date, though, in my opinion, is Afahad in a little show called Running Wild.
There you go. Sure.
He plays this. He plays Will Arnett is like a super billionaire.
Oh God, I forgot about that movie or that show.
It's such a good show. It's so
dumb.
It's
that show when they were trying to like find Will Arnett new things to do after he kind of like hit it big after Arrested Development, so they just kept giving him the same kinds of characters over and over again.
But this one is a like a total deconstruction of the obsessive, sheltered rich guy.
Mm-hmm.
Who, like, he is deconstructed in that, like, it's really, really good. And it plays off of like how like, what's a good way to put this, like for show conservationalism.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problem with for show conservationalism and like the lack of actual dedication, and like when people who, especially people who are big famous conservationists, like force their children into it to raise them in like these like in these places, and like the reality that some kids just want to live a normal life and like go to school and like do normal things, not live an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's a great show. I really really liked it. The gal who plays Felicity.
I was
in the
gonna
show
say
Felicity,
that's why I was just looking that up. I was like, wasn't Carrie Russell in that one?
Carrie
But I was like,
Russell's
I
in it,
couldn't
yeah.
remember her name, so I looked up Felicity and
Yeah.
and found and
Carrie,
pulled her
Carrie
name. Yeah.
Russell, Will Arnett, just an outright like great show. And this guy plays Alpha Odd, which is just like an awesome side character who is also very much of a sheltered rich kid grown up. And at one point he gets a mini pony, and like he rides a mini pony in the show in the first episode, and it's the greatest piece of television I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
That moment, and that's what made me fall in love with this man forever and ever. And I like, if I ever get the opportunity to cast anything, I will cast him in it, because just getting the opportunity to would be a lifetime dream come true.
There you go. Warwick
Was
Davis.
it a sexual awakening? Yes, it was.
Okay. Warwick Davis, who previously played Wicket the Ewok, makes his return to Star Wars here as Wald, as well as a pod race spectator and a Mos Espa citizen. Wald, in particular, is the Rhodian that is friends with young Anakin and his little crew that is not, a baby Greedo, as a lot of people mistakenly think.
Which is a weird
Very
thing.
different
They're like, oh, that's Baby Greedo. It's like, first off,
Racist.
Greedo was never a fat. Yeah, first off, racist, and also second off, Greedo was never a fat kid.
I mean, he could have had a different childhood.
Trust me, as a former fat kid, now fat adult, I can tell you the baggage you carry with being like, I've seen plenty of people who used to be fat kids who aren't fat kids. You carry that with you. Greedo doesn't carry that with him.
If he still shot first, is that something you'd be like, oh, that's a total fat kid move?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If Greedo shot first,
yeah.
If Greedo shot first, then
well, no,
sure.
I guess Greedo does shoot first now. That's this whole thing is
not truly,
not really
truly in our
yeah.
heart. Actually, here's the thing: he would go to shoot first, but be too slow for it. And actually, you know what? Yeah. Greedo,
so it is.
Greedo was a fat kid.
He was totally a fat
Greedo
kid.
Was a fat kid.
And that's why he said McClunky. He was out of breath.
Yeah,
yes.
That's fair.
There you go.
I will say though, it's weird that they had a full-grown adult man in a like miniature Greedo costume hanging out with just like a bunch of kids.
I mean, a like full-grown adult man is it's. I mean, yes, he is an adult man, but
yes, he's
Warwick Davis
like,
is full-grown is versus like obviously little person. Warwick Davis.
I meant to adult when I said full-grown.
There you
obviously.
go. I mean. You also had R2D2, Kenny Baker's R2D2, going around with the kids too, so it's a whole thing.
Yeah, but he was in a robot outfit. If you get put in a robot outfit, you can do whatever you want. Like you'll get away with it.
I mean, the thing you're alluding to though is like a thing that has always been the case with the Jawas, with the Ewoks. It was always like a mix of little people and children in those costumes. So
oh, you're right. Yeah, that's true.
So
I never really even thought about it, honestly.
Yeah, that's actually kind of like, man, Hollywood, what the fuck?
It's just weird stuff. Filling out the Queen Amidala's cadre of handmaidens, you have of course Keira Knightley, who would go on to be in Pirates of the Caribbean. I did not realize Sofia Coppola was one of them as well, though, until this lookup. And in part because I don't like, outside of Lost in Translation, I have seen nothing Coppola related, really. Sofia Coppola related. I've never seen The Godfather and stuff like that, so I just wouldn't recognize her. You have at the time, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Stalwart Greg Proops playing Fody, one of the like English speaking or basic speaking announcer, and then. I don't remember who he is, but he is listed as a Palace Guard, Dominic West, who would go on to be in The Wire, as well as a handful of other things, but who was also in Midsummer Night's Dream. But yeah, he's in there as one of the Palace Guards, I believe, in Naboo. The trivia. I throw this to the panel. Anybody have a clue who has a bad feeling about this for our They Have a Bad Feeling About This segment?
It is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yep.
Ewan McGregor, he starts off with it.
right from the beginning. Yep. I have a bad feeling about this mask.
And it will set the precedent for the entire prequel trilogy.
Yep. Yep. We should have known. A new thing I'm adding in here. Where does this take place in the galactic timeline? Phantom Menace takes place in the year 32 BBY, aka Battle before the Battle of Yavin. Other notable occurrences in the year 32 BBY: Han Solo and Boba Fett were also born that year. So Boba Fett already out there on the Camino breeding grounds being born. During filming, Ewan McGregor made lightsaber noises as he dueled. George Lucas explained many times that the sound effects would be added in by the special effects people later on. Ewan said, "I kept getting carried away." So we've kind of talked about that in the past. Sets were built only as high as the top of the actors' heads, and computer graphics filled in the rest. Liam Neeson was so tall that he cost the set crew an extra $150,000 in construction. I got a kick out of that. And it's especially noticeable, like, watching him in, like, a scene with Natalie Portman or something like that. He's, like, 2 feet above her or something like that. I was like, Moop.
Liam Neeson's a tall guy. They didn't know that when they cast him.
Oh,
so a lot of the sets were pre-built. And so then the additional stuff had to happen because the talk was, are we going to lower him? And it's like, no, his feet are in, like, he's going to be standing next to people all the time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Fortunately, they didn't have. Fortunately, they didn't have a ton of sets, so it was only an extra $150,000. Ewan McGregor studied many of Sir Alec Guinness's films, including Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, to ensure accuracy in everything from his accent to the pacing of his words. During the first week of the first trailer's release, many theaters reported up to 75% of their audiences paying full price for a movie, then walking out after the Star Wars Episode 1 trailer was shown. In particular, the films that benefited were The Waterboy, Meet Joe Black, and The Siege. That was I remember that being like a wild thing of like, the trailer is going to be before these movies? Well, like a ton of people went and saw Meet Joe Black just to see the trailer and then bounced. Which
is a shame because Meet Joe Black is a great film.
I mean, of those three, it is the best of the three, I imagine.
Well, I mean, if you walked out of Waterboy, you definitely that sucks.
I mean,
you missed out on a great movie.
I mean,
yeah, Waterboy is like one of the last great Adam Sandler films.
I think of the Waterboy in like the mid tier of Adam Sandler. Like you have Billy Madison, and Happy Gilmore, and then like Waterboy, Little Nicky to some people, and like maybe Mr. Deeds, and then just everything else.
Mr. Deeds, Mr. Deeds is an underrated.
Oh yeah,
classic.
Sorry, Big Daddy would be in one of those upper 2 tiers as well.
Mr. Deeds, man, Mr. Deeds gets a bad rap because it's not like one of his raunchier stuff, but it's so good and it has so many great like subtle jokes that are just so great. Love it.
Sure. In the Galactic Senate scene, when Queen Amidala is asking for a vote of no confidence, the whole Senate are on their feet shouting. In the lower left corner, you can see that there are E.T. species, as in the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial. George Lucas included them as a tribute to his longtime friend Steven Spielberg, as well as showing them that they exist in the same universe. Ewan McGregor once stated that before filming began, he and Liam Neeson were taken to a private room where 2 Lucasfilm employees approached them with a long, locked wooden box. When opened, they saw 20 various lightsaber hilts that they were being allowed to choose from to be their character's official weapon for the movie. Ewan then went on to explain that George Lucas only wanted to allow them a rushed 10 minutes to decide on which design they wanted because George believed that the actors should connect with their hilts through feeling and not through study. So, of course. I already mentioned...
How awesome must that have been?
Yeah. Like I remember a similar story that was basically like Samuel L. Jackson got to pick his and also demand that his lightsaber be purple. And they were like, all right.
He requested, they asked like, what color do you want? And he said, can I get purple? And they're like, probably not. Like George has like does not allow anything other than like the 3 colors. And so he's like, oh, okay, fine. And then later they told him when they're editing it, somebody like told him, hey, yours is purple.
And it was,
what they did, what they also did for him, the crew did for him is on his lightsaber as a tribute to him and
Pulp Fiction, right?
Pulp Fiction. They put Banff, which is the same phrase that is on his wallet in the movie Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
On the bottom hilt of his lightsaber.
Yeah.
So, honestly, did the film pan out great? No, but was there a lot of like excitement and wonder? in the creation of it, I think so. I think that's where it kind of like when you hear about like Liam Neeson, Liam Neeson was approached and was asked, "Do you want to do a Star Wars movie?
And
Like, do you
he
want to
said
do the new
yes
Star Wars
without
movie?"
reading the script. Yep.
Yeah, without reading it. And he's like, kind of regret it. Like, maybe could have like used my signing as a like way to like make the script better, but it's Star Wars.
Yeah. This one not pulled from anywhere like IMDb or anything like that. I just noticed it during the movie and was like, wow, that really stood out this time around. The puppet / animation for the pod racer Dud Bolt, who is a alligator snout looking kind of guy, I think. Is just the same animation over and over and over again every time he's on screen. Like the first time he's on screen, it's like him looking and then like scratching his nose or something like that, and then they play it in reverse and then replay it, and then they play the same animation like the next time they have him on screen. I was just like, wow, how, like if I've caught that before, how did that not get fixed in any of the re-releases of this stupid film? Like how is things like that, for as much attention to detail as Lucas likes to pay to like the CGI stuff? It was just like that.
Here's the problem.
That just jumps out at you.
He's too busy redoing the original trilogy over and over again, and completely ignoring the like abominable CGI that the prequels have.
Yeah. We have a
Although
Wilhelm
granted,
scream.
This one still has a pretty decent amount of practical pieces as far as like not sets go, but like equipment and stuff that doesn't get filled in later with CGI. Like we'll see in the next two films.
Yeah. It does have CGI Yoda though, when it originally had still puppet Yoda, which is sad. Yep. We have a Wilhelm scream at 1 hour and 47 minutes during the hangar shootout when a guard is shot. The blue-haired slave girl seen beside Jabba the Hutt before the pod race is wearing the same slave costume that would later be worn by Princess Leia Organa in Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Ewan McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Just 1 second. You know that Jabba reused that.
Like,
that's recycled.
Which
is just makes it even worse.
That's why I'm saying it's the same slave costume. She probably got fed to a Rancor, and then, well, I guess spoilers for Bad Batch. Maybe she was not fed to a Rancor because the Rancor, he didn't have the Rancor at that time.
The Rancor was a more recent addition.
Yeah. Anyway, Ewan McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi, is the nephew of Dennis Lawson, who, as we touched on in the past, played Rebel pilot Wedge Antilles in the original trilogy. And then lastly here, almost kind of tying to, what you're talking about with Terrence Stamp, as well as talking about like people, signing onto the film without reading scripts and stuff. Terrence Stamp disliked working on the film. He clarified that he had been looking forward to his scene with Natalie Portman, but was dismayed to find out that Portman wasn't on set that day. He was asked to act towards a piece of paper taped to a wall instead, which he described as very boring. He declined to reprise his role in the sequels, saying that actors prefer to work with actors. Also, when he complained to a producer about how little he was being paid, he was told he would get a present from George Lucas. The present turned out to be a cheap Star Wars children's stencil set. A far cry from the $5 million in bonuses that we talked about a couple episodes ago that he'd given out.
Well, to be fair, George Lucas, his divorce still is costing him so much money.
Fair.
He has lost more money to his
than
divorce
we will earn in our lives. Yes,
than
absolutely.
Anybody we know, all of us put together, will be put together in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Like by the time everything is said and done, and his estate will still make money, and will still be paying his ex-wife's estate long after we're all dead.
So what do we think, guys? How does it hold up? Frank, I will throw it to you first. Because you as you mentioned, I think in our first episode, like you saw these ones first, pretty much, right? So what do you think watching Phantom Menace all these years later?
Yeah, so and that is always kind of the weird thing, and because at the time I didn't hate them, and I definitely don't even really hate them now. But like I even back then I kind of acknowledged, even if I didn't really completely understand it, there was like a disparity in quality between the original and the prequels. But even the more I've rewatched them as time has gone on, they just kind of get worse for me in a weird way. But I don't mean to even just hate on it, because there's parts especially about this one that like I do like. Like I don't think this one is all bad, but there's also a lot of things in here that I also don't like. And even like I was kind of telling Trevor when we were talking beforehand, like I just like got bored at some point, right? Like you just get bored and it just kind of drags on and there's so many scenes that are super slow and drag on and not in like a super interesting way. Because kind of as a weird comparison, like I played the Yakuza games earlier this year, and there's straight up like 20-minute cutscenes that are just dialogue and just people talking, but it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this, it's like just super slow dialogue that like is like whatever. And I don't know, a lot of times I don't even think it necessarily means too much, you know? Like there's a lot of this movie you could just cut out and it wouldn't even really change the greater saga, let alone like the prequels, you know?
Yeah, I
So
didn't. I didn't pull that in as trivia because I don't think it's in IMDb or anything like that. But I remember hearing the story over the years that like Topher Grace really got into like editing film and stuff like that, and has like edited and shown to like groups of friends and stuff his like 90-minute or like 2 hour cut of all of the prequels, basically cut down together into one much better film by pretty much all accounts. So yeah, it's like there's definitely a lot of that of like there's so much slowness. It is the longest Star Wars film to date, as of like what we've been talking about so far. Future ones will go longer, but so far this is the longest. And yeah, there's just so much in here that just doesn't need to be in there, or it's so stilted and wooden, or it's like rehashing the same ideas and the same like things that it's just, yeah, you could have cut out 40 minutes of this movie probably, and not only would have been at like a better pace, but you like it probably would have improved anybody that was cut. Like their characters would have been made better for it.
the whole universe would have been better,
Yes.
probably. Like there's so many things you could cut out that just improve the canon and the universe like as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron, how about you?
Fine to good, but certainly not nowhere near great. It's like I consider it like good, but on like a lower gradient of good. Like good minus if I could like yeah like
I mean, we'll
things,
we'll get there at the end when we grade
Yeah.
the thing, but
yeah, I know. Like my feelings about it are very complicated because here's the thing. No jokes, like all jokes aside, like I do love, like I would like when I went to see this film as a kid, I was a weird kid. All right, I was 10 years old. I liked politics a lot, and I love Star Wars. So when they're like, "There's politics in Star Wars," why would you want that? 10-year-old Cameron loved it. Thought it was great. Like there's like we're getting to see the Senate. We're getting to see like the Republic at work. That being said, as an adult who, I pay attention to politics because it matters and hate it because everybody involved in it sucks. But like, this film is just, it's good. Like you guys were saying, there's so much that you can cut out of it. I started counting how many scenes just were unnecessary, or what parts of a scene were unnecessary. And there's just so much, like, this film is fatty, just so fatty, just unnecessarily, like there's too much silver skin, if you want to get into more of like a meat term there. It was just like like just unnecessary and untenable, unusable stuff. Like this should have been like, look at all this B footage that we have of like some random scenes that we have about it. Nobody would hate Jar Jar as much as they do if a bunch of the scenes that he was in were not totally pointless and take away from anything that else that happened on either side of that scene.
yeah.
There are other problems with Jar Jar, the Gungans, and the Trade Federation. We'll get into that later. But as far as my feelings about it, like this film just like I said, the meta narrative around the film is more fun and more interesting than the film itself. And it's a shame because there's enough there in this film that really could be interesting, but nothing is done with that. So I like it. It has a lot of wasted potential that this film could have been, with the same plot and everything that it had going for it. Just we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's my feeling about it right now.
Yeah, so the last time I really tried to do like a full rewatch of the whole saga, I stopped in it before I could even get to Duel of the Fates because I was so bored by this movie. For this episode, I rewatched the film twice. I basically rewatched it like Sunday so I could like pull up the doc and stuff, and then I rewatched it today since I took it an impromptu day off work because I was feeling a little under the weather this morning, and so I basically like rewatched it so it was fresh in my mind for the podcast, and it's still. I mean, you mentioned, Frank, before we started recording that you were kind of watching it like in the background. And that's what I was doing as well. Like I was doing other things and working on other things, but had it on. But when I did focus on it, I was just so annoyed by the question of like, who is this for? Like the original trilogy is great in that all of those movies are for all ages, and people will throw out there like it's a series for kids. It's like it wasn't a series for kids. It was a series. It was an all ages series. Which, yes, kids can enjoy the movie, but there's a lot of stuff in the original trilogy that goes over kids' heads. And then you get to something like Episode 1, and you have Jar Jar Binks that is a character directly for kids, who's making all sorts of poop jokes, who talks funny, and is basically just nonstop slapstick comedy. And like, we haven't had a character like that before. And yeah, I agree with kind of your sentiment there, Cameron, of like, none of that is Ahmed Best's fault. Like, he is doing everything that is asked of him. That is George Lucas deciding to make a very stupid character that like weakens the whole everything around it and around him. And it was like, it's frustrating, and like him stepping in like doo doo and like in walking into
he steps in a pile.
He steps in a pile of poop. Yep.
And there's no reason for it.
Nope. Apart from you know, getting kids to be like, haha, he stepped in poopy.
But like, I didn't like him
that didn't
or
need to be
like
there.
any of that even as a kid,
right?
You know, like, and I would have been the target audience, and I hated. I've never liked him. I've always hated him.
Yeah,
even in the future movies.
Yeah, and that's like that has become like, I mean, that is just what that character is like in a universe, you know, built around like, hey, Kismet and the Force and, you know, things happening for a reason and stuff. Like, everything Jar Jar related just looks like dumb luck come to fruition, and somehow he like comes out of everything unscathed. And it's like especially when you get into like the battle at the end and all that stuff, it's just like, oh my God, this is so dumb. Like the Clone Wars, you know, for as great as that show is in a lot of places, they still kind of continue that on in their like Jar Jar centric episodes and stuff. It's just like, why? This is whatever. And again, like it sucks that Ahmed Best got like such abuse and stuff because of that. Because
what happened to that man is unfair, and Lucas should be paying for his like therapy in life for the rest of his life, because that poor man. And
I mean, he might be. I don't know what the residuals deal is for Ahmed Best or whatever, but yeah, that like, it was very unfortunate that he suffered kind of because of that. And then, but I mean, same with Anakin. Like Anakin, if I don't know why nobody said like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have Anakin be like an 8-year-old kid. Like maybe this guy who we set up as this most feared being in the galaxy, maybe nobody wants to see what he was like as an 8-year-old kid. Like, if this movie had been about him as like a teenager or something like that, even like borderline angsty teenager having grown up as a slave or something like that, just age him up 5 years. It makes things between him and Natalie Portman way less awkward and uncomfortable. Yep. And then like, then you could have just had the same actor play the character all the way through or something like that. Like, I don't know what the rationale was of saying like, yeah, let's have this kid go around who also is, turns out Anakin Skywalker is basically space Jesus, because he doesn't have he doesn't have parent or like a father. He's born of the Force, born of midichlorians, as we you know learn about in this movie. And yeah, it's just like and we see him, you know, scream around joyously with yippee and
now this is pod racing.
Now that's pod racing. Yeah,
George Lucas doesn't know how to direct children. He doesn't know how to direct children.
He doesn't know how to direct actors.
Yeah.
I would say, like children, adults, whatever, like, and some of the, people that have kind of come out and said like, yeah, it was not a great experience on set kind of thing. Like he's great for the tech, and he has great interesting ideas that other people can like flesh out and make better. That's kind of always been my stance, or at least like since I've started thinking critically about this kind of stuff. And so yeah, like characters like how Anakin is portrayed here, and Jar Jar, and the battle droids. Like, this just goes so far into the realm of like, let's make this for kids, but kids don't want this deep political saga about trade federations and embargoes and blockades and senates and
Well,
no.
this kid did.
I mean,
I
like,
was the weirdo.
sure, but even like you were what, 13 at the time or something like that, 99, 10. Okay,
I was 10.
then yeah, you're extra weird. But
I was a weird 10-year-old dude. I got into politics when I was like 7 or 8. I'm a weird kid.
yeah, but like just it, and even that though, like, it's not great politics. It's like very surface level politics.
Yeah, it's not even that. That was kind of my takeaway from it this time as well. Is like the politics in this film are, like, don't get me wrong. Like here's how actual wars happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
A taxation that is seen as being unfair leads to a demonstration, in this case, and a trade embargo, not an embargo, a blockade, like we're going to put our trade ships in front of you, so like, and we're going to make an example out of this one system that has a lot of political influence but doesn't have a lot of pushback.
Yeah,
They don't have a lot of like effort. They have a lot of influence, but not a lot of actual power behind them.
Yeah, I mean they say like we have no military force, like we're only a volunteer army or whatever, like all that stuff.
We're a voluntary security force, like not even a police, like a security force. Like I like that. I like that entire premise because it's like, yeah, this is a very like real, like that's a very real thing that happens, and then it's like, but there's something nefarious that leads to an invasion and all this other political machinations. That works.
Yeah.
But when they get to and this is where it comes down to a massive part of the problem. And we should, I don't know if we should just broach it now to rip the Band-Aid off.
The racist overtones and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yep. But like just Jar Jar Binks would be a much better character if he just spoke plain basic.
Yeah. If he and the Gungans didn't sound like African American minstrel show kind of
borderline
dialects
on that
stuff,
with that unintelligible putting legitimately the word doo-doo into a vocabulary.
Yeah.
You say in big doo-doo, like toddler speak on that level was terrible. The Trade Federation with these Asian bordering on Asian, not necessarily there where it's a full on like racist caricature, but it's so there. It's so on that line. That
Watto is the very stereotypical Jewish character types.
Yeah, Jewish character. I don't like you can't. My tricks don't work on me. Only money does. Like stereotypical like New York broker Jew, and it's like George. Like did nobody pull George aside and say George? Like first off, none of these characters were in the original film. Did the script supervisors come through in the original film and be like, cool, George, so you can't have the N-word in your film or something? Like, what's the deal with this guy? Like at this point in time, like,
I mean, no, like nobody was telling him no.
Nobody was telling him no. It's weird too because he's as somebody who is as politically like progressive as he is to put out this movie with these racist caricatures. It's really weird and just absolutely nuts.
I mean, it is, but it's also like I mean, we see this a lot with like billionaires or people with like a ton of money, is that they're like they can be progressive, but they're also very unaware of like what the real world is. And I mean, like the example I use now is J.K. Rowling is absolutely George Lucasing, not only in her very transphobic and disgusting sentiments and behavior, but like even in the Fantastic Beasts stuff, it's like she's throwing in a whole bunch of new ideas into the lore of Harry Potter because nobody's telling her no, and like none of them are making the series and the saga better. It's just like
Yeah, that's true.
weird decisions, but because they have a level of power and a level of like reverence behind them that there's not pushback. And I think you see that a lot in the prequels here with Lucas, where like people just weren't
Yeah.
really saying no to him. They were just like, we're just happy to have more Star Wars. Thank you for making more Star Wars. Please give us more Star Wars. Like, oh, like I get to work on a Star Wars. That's amazing. Without really being like, this isn't the best Star Wars. Like I wish these ideas were better. Is I think we see a lot of that. And there are just like a ton of, I mean, we're kind of like into the whole like favorite / least favorite moments, and this is one where we're gonna have a lot of least favorite moments, I'm sure. But like they're just things that within the movie itself don't make sense. Don't show us that Jedi have these super jumping abilities or super like speed abilities to get out of a droid fight, and then when it comes to the end fight with Darth Maul, you get like Obi-Wan is so far away and doesn't use that, speed running ability to catch up to Qui-Gon and keep the fight a 2-on-1 fight kind of like. It's, if you hadn't shown us it, like you could have taken out that like 2 seconds of a scene earlier of showing them just like jet down a hall real quick, and that end scene is made better by cutting out that thing you established earlier. Like it doesn't, he just doesn't even like abide by his own rules. I like, obviously it doesn't really pay off in this one, but when Obi-Wan is hanging there at the end, it's like, oh man, it's a shame he doesn't have the high ground. I really, like Darth Maul has the high ground there. I hope that doesn't, come back to bite us anywhere. And it's just like, how do you like, I don't like so many of those decisions. And they just like, I don't know what the rationale was behind them. Like the idea that there's the whole like, oh, Padme is not really like, Padme is, the queen, but she's incognito and stuff like that. It's like, does nobody know that the queen's name is Padme Amidala? Does nobody drawing the distinction here between the handmaiden and the queen?
She's clearly a puppet ruler. Like that's the entire point of her position.
Well, it's not though. Like she is not a puppet ruler. She is a democratically elected queen of the people of Naboo, which again, like goes to, I don't think George Lucas knows politics all that well, or what, it's an interesting idea to be like, oh, queens aren't, inherited or whatever. A queen is a title and they are voted to being a queen. But still, it's like, okay, like
also super sexist then. Like you're only like at a weird way. Like
I mean, I don't.
like, cool,
maybe they can have a king. I don't know Naboo's politics. Like I just know that based on what they've introduced, like it is a democratically, like people vote for the queen. But
let's also
like,
not even get into the logistics of like you can't actually swim through it. Like you can't pilot your way through a planet's core.
There's that too. But like even just sticking on the queen and her handmaidens, the idea that Keira Knightley can like have the rule of a queen and basically like order the actual queen to go clean up a droid and stuff
makes no sense now. Like like I was watching it again, I was like what?
She like if she makes a command, the real queen to like play into the ruse has to abide by it. It's just like if you think about these things at all, it's like, hey, maybe there's a different way to do that. That's like not even getting into the fact that like, I mean, yeah, they all look a little bit alike, but having the also potentially borderline racist-y looking thing of like kind of geisha makeup to like as the mask that hides her identity is like also really weird. And it's like, no, I can tell that I'm talking to a different person than when I was talking to the queen earlier or something like that.
We were all literally on this small starship together for who knows how long. Get it real. No, for sure. I feel that.
It's weird. And I admittedly like that surprise was never a surprise for me because I was the weird kid that read the novelization before the movie came out. So like,
my man.
So like, I knew that was a thing. And I knew that like Amidala and Padme were one and the same and stuff. But like, even like in the movie, it's like the the fact that Qui-Gon is presented as like, the smartest character in the room for a lot of this movie and is constantly duped and tricked and is stupid in that he doesn't know that his mind trick isn't working on this Toydarian, or he doesn't realize that the person he's talking to and saying dismissive things like, no, the Queen trusts me, the Queen trusts my judgment, is the Queen, is like, if Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first movie acted like that, he would not have become like the revered character in the lore of the Star Wars universe. And Qui-Gon is just like repeatedly stupid in this movie, and it just like drives me crazy. And yes, he gets like a few, over on people through, the less than Jedi means. But it's just, there's so much like, why did you do such a disservice to a lot of these characters, George? I don't understand, like, the artificial conflict that you're setting up here that didn't need to be in there. It doesn't add anything. It just kind of makes your characters look dumb. Is like frustrating and irksome. And yeah, I just okay. Anybody have any favorite moments they want to talk about?
I do. I want to talk about. So most of my favorite moments have to do with Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn is notably like one of my favorite characters in the overall Star Wars series, especially expanded universe. I love Qui-Gon Jinn. A lot of the things they do here, like a lot of the kind of like his more wily moments, set up a really great character in the expanded universe, especially the young Obi-Wan novels. Where like this is a guy, and like I love how they treat him like he's old. I forgot that Liam Neeson was actually much younger than Qui-Gon is supposed to be. Qui-Gon is a like man in his late 60s, early 70s in this film. But because he's a Jedi, he can do all these things, but you can tell he gets tired faster. And like Qui-Gon Jinn is older in this film than Obi-Wan was when Obi-Wan dies. But he also did live on Tatooine for 20 years
alone as a crazy hermit.
As a crazy hermit, yeah, that's hard living. No, but I like Qui-Gon as like he sets up. What I love about him though is, and I especially love his moments with Obi-Wan, where and with Anakin even, where he is this. You're questioning me, and it's good that you're questioning me. But like observe as well. Like he never admonishes them for like being questioned. He is always willing to answer, like even like what are midichlorians? Like what's going on? Like he is willing to take time to teach. And if Jar Jar Binks hadn't been so annoying, I would love even more his moments with Jar Jar Binks, to the point where like he accepts that Jar Jar is, and what I love about, and this is actually some things that I noticed this time around that I love, is they drop so many hints beforehand, before you even have Qui-Gon Jinn in the same room with the rest of the council, that the moment they set up Qui-Gon about who he is somebody who is in contradiction to Yoda. And it's funny because the things Yoda teaches Luke, the things that we really get into about like the future is like, you're focusing on the future, not living in the moment. You're not like the living force. He keeps referencing the living force, which is kind of a big point in that a large part so Qui-Gon Jinn practices the living force, which is something that in the novelization of Phantom Menace even they get into, which is this idea of the force lives in the moment. If you try to predict the future all the time, it's going to be murky, cloudy, you're not going to be able to predict it. And it can be obscured, and you can be deceived and tricked. And it's this whole setup of that. And I love that there's so much about Qui-Gon that is like he is willing to do things and be the kind of character where he is like a little bit of a rogue. He's a little bit of a rebel, and especially in the case of, especially in the case when the council tells him like, so we're not going to train the kid. And he goes, okay, steps over, puts his hands on Anakin's shoulders and said, I'll train the boy. And they're immediately like, Qui-Gon, Excuse me, Qui-Gon, but the Jedi Code clearly states that you can't have 2 apprentices. Cool. Obi-Wan's ready then. Like, if I need to train this boy, if you're telling me I'm the one that has to train this boy, because I'm the only one willing to, then that means Obi-Wan's ready. Like, he is in the moment ready to make the adjustments that need to be made and accept that there is a path and the Force does guide you. And it echoes a lot of what Obi-Wan tells Luke in A New Hope about the Force. The Force is all around us. It guides us. And a lot of these ideas about the Force as a living thing and not just a power. Not just an ability, like the Force is the abilities the Jedi have. It reinforces the idea that the Force is this living thing. And now do they go way too far into that with midichlorians? Yes, they do. But that's not a Qui-Gon problem. That's a George Lucas Star Wars problem. And with the way that Qui-Gon, and especially props up Anakin, and allows, like, he senses Anakin strong in the Force, and initially he's like, I'm going to leave this kid behind, but I can at least set him up for, like, a better, like, I can set him up the right way. Trust your instincts, you know what you're doing, it's fine. And to the point then when he's like, he starts getting these clues, like, there's something off about this kid. And then we get, of course, he turns out to be Space Jesus, Star Wars Space Jesus. And he just, like, he goes, that's why I'm here. Like, that must be why I'm here. I love the acceptance of, not that there's something called fate, but that he has a higher purpose in what's guiding him is another thing that I love about the character, and kind of like what he passes on. And also, like, he has the green lightsaber. That's badass.
He's a super cool hippie Jedi guy who also turns out was right about everything. And he was Cassandra Truth, and the rest of the council were big old dum-dums.
I don't know what Cassandra Truth means, but okay.
It's a trope. It's okay.
Okay. Is, like, based on the Greek character Cassandra? Okay. Cool. So Frank, hit me with some of your favorite bits of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, so I have a couple random things, and these are just things I've always liked about the movie, and even things I still noticed this time. One thing I did want to call out, I do like the ship designs. I know they're weird and a bit different, but I do like them, especially some of them, like those yellow starfighters, like the Naboo starfighters, and Amidala's, like, platinum ship is also really cool. And it is kind of weird. Something I did notice this time is, like, the juxtaposition of, like, the original trilogy is, like, this, like, older, dirtier Star Wars, and this is, like, everything's still nice and, like, new, and, like, wars haven't been going on for decades. So that's kind of a cool thing to be able to see. And especially another thing I did like is, like, some of those city shots of, like, you know, when they come out of the water and they're in, like, that super beautiful city, like, some of that stuff's cool too. Like they definitely had, like, some cool stuff going for them, but it's kind of like, I think, you know, like we talked about, like, if they would cut out a lot and if they just did things differently, it could have been better. But another thing I did like, of course, is, like, the Duel of the Fates is cool, like, and not just the music, but I mean, like, the entire kind of set piece, like, that moment, and, like, the ending is, like, I think still one of the stronger parts of the movie. And, like, Darth Maul is super cool. Like, he's a really cool villain, and it's just one of those things. It sucks that he gets killed and then it's just gone for, you know, the rest of these movies. And I wish they kind of had done a thing where, I know this is more probably like Revenge of the Sith talk, but I wish there was more of, like, a centralized villain than them just building someone up and killing them, or not even building someone up and just, you know, bringing someone in and killing them who has a red lightsaber or multiple lightsabers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, like, obviously they liked him so much that, much like Han in Fast and Furious, they found a way to bring him back throughout the Clone Wars and stuff like that. And for people that don't watch the Clone Wars or Rebels or whatever, it's like seeing him show up again in Solo. It's like, wait, but, like, I saw him get sliced in two and blood splatter up, even though we've established, like, at this point long ago that, like, the lightsaber cauterizes the wound. So why is blood? Whatever.
It was misting. It was from the cauterization. It missed it.
Sure. It's just a weird stuff.
Is it weird? Yes, it is, Trevor. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because Qui-Gun, when he gets stabbed through the abdomen and we don't
Yep.
see, like, a red mist
Yep.
pop out behind him.
Nope, nothing
Does
there.
it make any sense? No, it doesn't.
No, nowhere else. No, when other limbs get chopped off and stuff. No, nope, don't say anything. It's just like what, like I guess, like
a
I
weird
mean, it
thing.
definitely establishes that he's dead, and so when you see him, split in two as he falls down that pit, okay, yeah, even that, I feel like I probably would have gotten the clue from that, not the little weird CG mist of blood. But yeah, I mean, like the Duel of the Fates, like that. Not only is that just a phenomenal piece of music, but the whole lightsaber thing was wildly different than any other lightsaber duel we'd seen before, because obviously, the originals were a very different style, and weren't trying to be the most acrobatic sword fight and stuff like that. So
Well,
like,
it's interesting because in the making of like Star Wars and stuff, uh, the person who was the fencing master for the original trilogy, it was set up to be like the idea was like samurai fighting, and so you have this very much this focused on these attacks and much less of these like swirling acrobatics. The take on lightsaber combat in the prequels is a take on fencing. And so, for example, when they're practicing, there's really great background footage of Ewan McGregor and what's his name?
Ray Park, Liam Neeson,
No, in the future films, what's his name?
Hayden
Hayden
Christensen.
Christensen.
Aiden Christensen. There's great footage of them practicing their fencing maneuvers,
Hmm.
and it's super intense, and it gets really gritty and in there, and it's super good. It's in the behind the scenes stuff for Revenge of the Sith, but it's very clear that the direction of what lightsaber combat is in the prequels versus the the original films is very much a different philosophy on stage combat and everything else.
Yeah.
Which you could easily look at what happens in the with how this is like you can say, remember how Luke fought in Empire Strikes Back, a little bit more acrobatic, a little bit more like, a little bit more that way, versus somebody who's like a master at this combat who only uses precise movements. And you see that, I think, a little bit with Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon, like, Obi-Wan does the flips. Totally unnecessary. You don't need to flip yourself up there. Just jump.
Yeah.
And it shows in that I love it because Darth Maul kind of goads him into it.
Before you dive into
Great.
this path, I just am going to immediately point out how quickly that's going to be undone in the next movie with Yoda flipping all over the fucking place. So
Don't bring that up, man. Don't bring that up, all right?
So-
there's a reason why that's the worst one.
So yeah, your whole like this deep thought of like, oh no, masters are showing, and this is why there's no, it does, like they did things this way because it looks cooler. It's way more animated and dramatic on film to have this much action. This is also like post all of the action movies of the 80s and the 90s. So like just a couple of guys poking each other with giant sticks wasn't going to cut it anymore. So they needed to kind of make things a little more flamboyant, and I love it.
Why'd you have to bring up Yoda like that?
I love the choreography of the this fight in particular, to varying degrees in the next couple movies, but like I remember again when I originally went and saw it with my friends, we'd seen in trailers and stuff, we'd seen clips of these fights and stuff, and like I had the double-bladed lightsaber and was like spinning it around and doing stuff, and like just the idea that like the double-bladed lightsaber can be cut in half and still work as a single-bladed lightsaber, so you change up your fighting style, like that's a really cool thing that like gets introduced here, and is like, and by having trained stunt people doing these fights more so than David Prowse and Mark Hamill in the originals and stuff like that, like makes the ability to do this stuff that much more vibrant and really cool. And so yeah, I love that, even if they don't have the emotional stakes that some of the original trilogy lightsaber duels have. They're still really cool, and
They're awesome,
and a
yeah.
ton of fun to like be like, if you were a kid, those are the things that are like the takeaway from this movie of like, I'm gonna buy a lightsaber and I'm gonna spin around stuff. I still want to get back to Disneyland so I can go build my own lightsaber at the new Star Wars Land stuff.
Trevor, is that a trip that we should be planning together?
I mean,
Make some
potentially.
content for that nerdy site.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go.
We got the Game Awards theoretically coming back this year, so
There
I'll
we
go.
go.
Yeah,
Good reason to go to LA. Let's go.
yeah. But yeah, like I love that. And pod racing, as dumb as moments of pod racing are, like the idea and especially the game are a ton of fun, and they give that same sense of like excitement and wonder of the trench run or flying the snow speeders on Hoth and that kind of stuff. So like those being the big set pieces, ton of fun, love it. I like, as dumb as what Anakin is doing up in space at the end is, I appreciate
hate
that
that.
like we don't spend a ton of time on that space battle.
Yeah.
Like it is, as I kind of joked about last week, oh, we had 3 planes of action, growing up to 4 planes of action in this one, of war with the Gungans, trying to take back Theed, the Duel of the Fates, and the space battle. It's like there's way too much going on here. One of these doesn't need to happen entirely. And I mean, even the whole Gungan thing, it's like, so like Gungans are known well enough that the people of Naboo know that there's this other civilization on this planet, but like nobody else in the galaxy knows that. Like they're a surprise to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. They're surprised to the Trade Federation. They're just like hidden underwater cities. It's like, how, whatever. None of this stuff makes sense. I don't put logic into this, because clearly like other people didn't die there.
Well,
It was
Trevor,
clearly-
How much do you know about the Aboriginals of Australia?
I mean, I know they exist, and I know they were there, and I know a general place of where you could find them.
But imagine you're on a completely different planet in a completely different system.
If I'm doing a trade blockade on that planet, I'd probably still know a little bit about that planet, or somebody in the galaxy would know a little bit about that planet. Like, there's just a whole bunch of... Again, if you think about these
I'm with
things
you,
too
man.
long,
I'm with you.
they
Yeah,
clearly
it's-
didn't either. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I like...
We have collectively in this podcast alone put more thought into the logistics of Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace than George Lucas did the entire time he made it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that, because he clearly did put a lot into it. It's just
That's fair.
I just don't understand the decision, like why he made some of the decisions that he made. Like I think I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but Patton Oswalt has a great stand-up set that's basically like going through the prequels one by one and basically being like everybody's really excited. You loved Darth Vader from the first prequel, or from the original trilogy, right? Well, what if we show you Darth Vader as a kid? There's Phantom Menace. Oh, you love Boba Fett from the originals, right? Because people did. What if we show you Boba Fett as a kid? There's Attack of the Clones. Oh, you love the Death Star, right? What if we show you the Death Star as a kid? There's Revenge of the Sith, and it's and it's basically like he does a whole stand-up bit on it. It's brilliant, and I love it. And that's just like, I don't know why. Again, we go too far back. I don't know why George Lucas thought like showing this part of Anakin. If you want to do again a rise and fall of Anakin story, which is clearly what the trilogy is, like, don't start here. Nobody wants to see like toddler Anakin who doesn't know the universe, is just lucking his way through things. We didn't need midichlorians. We didn't like that. I don't know why nobody like just said, hey, do you think maybe it was better when it was just kind of like this mystical force in the world? Do you really need to throw science behind this? A scientific explanation for why some people have the force and some people don't? Like, why do we need to make it about biology? And I just don't. I don't know
I'm with you, man.
what was going on there. So, yeah, there's. I'm sure we could say a ton more about the Phantom Menace, but I'm sure a million other people have already said a lot of these things as well. Any last bits that anybody wants to highlight? And we have about 15 minutes because I know Frank has a hard out, so I don't want to push things too long. But if anybody has any final thoughts, we can do that before we move into the grading.
Yeah, I just did also want to give a quick shout out. I know we talked about him a little bit already, but I mean Mace Windu, like Samuel L. Jackson, like he is one part of these movies and these prequels that even though they could have probably used him better, like I like him. I like that he's one of the Jedi Council members, and I like that he's not one of the like atypical ones. He is kind of a little bit more different than, like Qui-Gon, and like it's kind of just about having. I like seeing more of Jedis, and I just like that not every Jedi is like a cardboard cutout of a Jedi.
Yeah, I like the Mace Windu character that we get in is it Tartarovsky Clone Wars, the 2D animated Clone Wars before the 3D animated ones.
Yeah.
Like that, he has like a short in there that makes him look really cool, and then he would eventually get some cool showcase episodes in the Clone Wars series. But in these movies, I'm like, why take a character actor like Samuel L. Jackson, known for being, foul, and just making him the most milquetoast guy? I don't understand that, and that sticks out to me now, especially now that he has gone on to be like Nick Fury in a billion Marvel movies and stuff. It's like,
Oh yeah.
like it's just such a weird casting choice to cast this guy. I mean, great actor and great body of work behind him, but like that's not what he's known for. He's the guy that's gonna go on and after that movie do Snakes on a Plane and become like a joke and a meme kind of guy. And yeah, the Bamf, as you alluded to earlier, can't like that's who Samuel L. Jackson is. Mace Windu is like anybody else I think could have played that role, and I don't know why you waste Samuel Jackson in that role.
We do not have time. We wouldn't have time even if we had time to get into like the expanded universe about him. But I digress. I will say though, the last bit I'll say is that this film I think gets a very bad rap, and I think it's because of a couple of really, really, really terrible, catastrophic decisions. One being having Anakin that young, and I want to say this earlier before during like the things that I think I liked or didn't like. But then my internet decided to go just absolutely down the toilet for a minute. Imagine Anakin was just like you mentioned earlier, Trevor, 5 years older.
Yeah.
And instead of this precocious child, you have a little bit of a snarky teen, like a snarky 13-year-old kid who's like take every single one of his lines that he has, and instead of it being a precocious child who's wiser or smarter than
you
his
an angel? Just have
Are
it
you
be a
an angel? Be
pickup
like-
line. that would be an interesting.
That would be
Yeah,
good.
it would be
Yeah.
like have.
Instead of being a dumb kid who's like, "Are you an angel?" Be like, "Hey, are you an angel?" And have Padme just be like, "Excuse me?" No, like an angel, like like play it off like, "Oh no, they're the most beautiful creatures in the galaxy."
Mhm.
Like, could have totally been like a totally schmoozy character, more of like we would have gotten a quote unquote Han type character in this film.
Yeah.
And then that's totally sets it up where it's like, I'm a little kid and I'm genuine about how great I am at pod racing. Just totally have it be this like teenage kid flying by the seat of his pants at everything he does.
Yeah.
And like,
Don't get
But how
cocky,
they, like-
kid. No, actually, get a little more cocky, kid.
yeah, exactly. Like we could have used that in this film so much more without, and then like having a regular speaking Jar Jar Binks being a like, even if you want to keep half that slapstick in there, do that. But like, there's so many bigger points that could have been made about this that just suck. But honestly, like the good things about this film, I think generally like the overall film itself is just too much, too fatty. And I think this is the first time I will say like the bad outweighs the good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In a lot of instances, even though there is still a lot of good, there's just so much more bad.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about basically shoehorning in C-3PO and R2-D2 in this to make the entire saga really about those droids. Anakin Skywalker was the one that created C-3PO. That's not a thing we needed to exist in the universe. R2-D2 happened to, fix the starfighter that Luke and Leia's mom basically was on and brought her into to meet it. Like, it's like, what? Like,
I'm cool with that.
It's okay if you like, yeah, it could be done. I just think it's not done well. I think it's done in the same way that like a lot of stuff we'll eventually see in Solo is done, of like, man, those were just like not the best choices.
So you're
R2D2
alone? You must be
yeah,
solo.
Solo. We'll talk about that when we get to it, but I will say that I didn't mind R2D2 because it was just a little thing, and then R2D2 was just like around.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a cool thing. Like, oh, it's this like you're a lucky droid. You made it out of like that scrap that killed all the other ones alive. Thanks so much for that. But C-3PO being you could have easily introduced C-3PO in the next film as Padme's protocol droid that she has now that she's a senator.
Yeah. Could
have been way easier that way. We didn't need this busted down looking C-3PO with his wires all hanging out of his groin. Mm-hmm. We could have all gotten away without seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Without C-3PO's naked jokes. Yeah. It's just There's just I agree that like there's a lot of bad in this one, and the highlights don't really like they were fine when I was a kid, but as I look at this more, I'm just like I just don't like a lot of the decisions that are made. And like again, I'm never gonna be the guy of like fucking redo the prequels or whatever. But like I just don't know why these decisions were made. I appreciate that Dave Filoni is trying to like retcon a whole bunch of stuff. We touched on when Cam and I did the episode on the Mandalorian behind the scenes show. We talked about how Dave Filoni like has completely rewritten and recontextualized what the end Duel of the Fates sequence is about. It's a fight for the soul of Anakin, basically. And it's like rewatching this movie confirms what I thought at the time. I'm like, you can think that is not what is put on this screen. Like, this is not, Obi-Wan versus Qui-Gon for like the fate of Anakin, and is he going to be a father figure or a brother figure? No, because in Filoni's like talk about it, it's talking about will Qui-Gon be a father figure, or will Obi-Wan be like a brother figure to Anakin?
Yeah.
When all is said and done, it's like that's a great like retconning of it, but that's not what George did with this movie. That's not like that might be what you guys talk about, over drinks when talking about Phantom Menace, but that's not what George put on film. So, yeah.
I mean, I would agree with that actually, to the nth degree, because it just shows because I don't think there was that much thought put behind that scene. Because otherwise you wouldn't have it cut with 4 other scenes.
Yeah.
On other like creating 4 planes of action, it just was unnecessary in so many ways.
Yeah.
In a way, this film is too ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Or even in a way, it tries to like outdo some of the things in the old Star Wars in probably like a bad way. Like I don't know if he tried to like come in and like top himself, or like how can I do better? And it's like more. But you end up with what we got, right? Where we're like, this is too much. Like, if you rolled this back, like, oh, sorry, one more thing I did want to bring up that I don't like, the Space Diner.
The Space Diner?
We just totally, like the part where they, like, don't Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, or am I confusing that with Attack of the Clones?
That's Attack of the Clones, yeah.
Okay, that is Attack of the Clones. That's my bad.
You are correct. The Space Diner is terrible.
I mean, yes, agreed.
That's a different film.
What,
that makes Attack of the Clones worse,
so,
though.
Yeah. We'll talk about that next
it
week.
It brought it into your mind that it happened in this film. That's how bad that was.
I love that you think Qui-Gon is in that scene, though. Like, I'll be very curious.
I thought it was, like, him and Obi-Wan, and then as I was describing it, I was like, that is not that scene at all. Like...
Yeah. No, we will talk about the diner scene, the space diner next week, I'm sure, as well as like the space club that has like the space drug scene and stuff like that. You want some death sticks or something, whatever that guy talks about. Anyway, It's the Phantom Menace. But speaking of that, you guys mentioned in one of the previous episodes some TikTok video out there that basically like retitled all of the movies and basically said like the Star Wars movies are mislabeled. So I looked that up. I didn't actually look at the TikTok video, but I saw like articles talking about it. And yeah, per that theory, it's like this movie actually should be called The Rise of Skywalker, not The Phantom Menace. So, and yeah, that's probably a better fit for the movie overall. But that's going to do it. So let's go ahead and wrap up with our report card where we grade the episode, or the Star Wars episode from A+ to F. Frank, I will throw it to you first. What do you want to give Star Wars the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, and I thought about this earlier, and I don't want to be too harsh on it, but also like it's not, particularly great, and it's not like the best thing out there. So I think for me, it's just like a C.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe even like a C plus. It just didn't seem like a B. It really felt right. So I think I would just say like a flat C.
Okay. Cameron, how about you?
I slightly disagree with Frank. I think it does, I think there's the good things that it does are good enough for me to make it a B status, but it's a B minus for me. Like, this is, if we go by the grade scale, this is an 80. Like, this is an 80. You are above average, like you're above average of films that like exist, but you are still, like, when you contextualize everything, like, you're barely getting out of average status, man.
All right. I am gonna go C minus myself. I think it is a below average film, let alone like a Star Wars film, certainly as well. Like, grading on the curve, it is not rise to the heights of other Star Wars things. So yeah, it gets a C minus for me. Not quite D plus territory for the show's namesake, but C minus nonetheless. Indeed, I had to save something for next week. And then lastly, I will, just because, as we clearly discussed, Logan loves this movie so much, I got to give it an A plus for Logan. So it's right up there. It is right up there with the Return of the Jedi for Logan. So give him a shout out again if you want to praise that. So I imagine we're all in agreement that this falls to the bottom of our ranking. Where currently we have Return of the Jedi, then Empire Strikes Back, and then A New Hope. This falls below A New Hope, right? Yeah.
100%, yeah.
No surprise there. We'll see how the bottom of the list shakes out here in the next couple weeks. Extra credit. This is other suggestions that Disney Plus will make for you if you like this one. For the first time in this series, the suggestions are the entire rest of the Skywalker saga. The original trilogy, each of those movies basically substituted another movie in the saga for The Mandalorian. Mandalorian gets no love for The Phantom Menace. It just says, hey, watch through all 9 of these movies, basically. So
Makes sense, because if you watch it on Disney Plus, that is the first one.
Exactly, so. Yeah. So it is Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. Extracurriculars. Anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus? Cam, have you caught up on anything yet? Just Loki for you, Frank? Cam, you watching anything?
We discussed this last night. I haven't delved into much of anything in Disney Plus in a while, so.
That is fair. I'm watching locally. I also sat down and watched Luca, the new Pixar movie that came out this last weekend. You did watch Luca?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a cute little. It is very Little Mermaid-esque, but a bromance kind of thing. Ton of fun there. So
it's a great Pixar film.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Had a good time with that one. But yeah, Loki's probably my standout right now. And then I'm still continuing to watch The Bad Batch and High School Musical, the series. So yep, whole bunch of stuff. Check out all that cool, fun stuff on Disney Plus. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you guys for joining me to talk about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cameron?
No.
Okay. You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything you want to give some love to, Frank?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to our other podcast, That Nerdy Side Show. With our last episode that we just did that went up on Monday was pretty good, and then I know we'll have another one coming up here where we'll probably have some cool thoughts about, like, I finished Final Fantasy, and then also Fast and the Furious is coming out tonight, so I know we'll probably have some thoughts about that, so that'll be fun.
Indeed. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and I will just shout out our YouTube channel where on Tuesdays and Thursdays we throw up Let's Plays. I was not able to get our Let's Play of Operation Tango edited this week, so instead I dug back into the well for our That Retro Gaming Show, where I've been playing through games on the NES Classic. Haven't done one of those since March, but I sat down with Super C, aka Super Contra. So that episode went live today as we're recording this. But yeah, you can check out all of those over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends. all that fun stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and may the Force be with you.